Well, it's 5 minutes after. We have 22 participants hanging out with us this morning, so let's go ahead and kick this off. I want to welcome everybody to day 2 of Midwest Design Week. Thank you for joining us today for the Software as a Storytelling Tool event. We're really excited for this. My name is Jamie Meltzer. I'm on the Indianapolis AIGA board. And today we have Herb and Rosanna are helping out and assisting with us. Herb's with me on Indianapolis AIGA. Rosanna is in Cincinnati. And wow, we're one of 70 chapters inside the States. That's pretty crazy. This week we have a lot of really exciting events that focus on our theme of culture and its many forms, including, as I pointed out, the Wednesday nights Creating Culture Across Creative Communities panel. That's going to be a really exciting one. Hopefully you can join that event. Along with our keynote event on Friday night, Design for Liberation by Teresa Moses, who is the creative director at Blackbird Revolt, a social justice-based design studio in Minnesota. And information on all these events, of course, are available at midwestdesignweek.com or in Slack. Now, this event would not have been possible without the support of our sponsors this year. Let me just share my screen real quick. Now, I would give a big thanks to all of our sponsors, Premier being OldSpeak, and Adobe. Wow, Adobe's Salesforce? That's crazy. Borshoff? So we have a lot of really good sponsors this year that we want to thank and give a lot of credit to, because without our sponsors, along with those of us that are on the event today and that are joining all the events this week, Midwest Design Week wouldn't have been possible. Just want to thank everybody and all of our sponsors for being part of today. A few things I need to mention. Today we have the lovely Lena as our ASL interpreter. She'll be joining the event throughout the time. Now we are having breakout sessions today. So if anybody has specific needs of an ASL interpreter, please let us know in the chat stream so we can make sure that Lena is a part of your specific breakout room. Breakout rooms will be happening a little bit later in the event, so there's plenty of time to let us know. Also need to make you aware of something that might be pretty handy for you to do on your screen. For the most part, Andy's going to be talking, walking through his workshop, and then we'll be going into breakout rooms. It might be beneficial up in the upper right-hand corner. You have a view option. You can choose speaker or gallery. You can choose gallery if you like, but speaker will specifically focus the view on Andy or the person speaking at the time, hence speaker. So to make sense of the workshop, it might be easier to do that if and when Andy isn't sharing his screen. Now let me introduce Andy Chen. Andy Chen, I have had the pleasure of knowing for a while. We work together, and Andy is an interaction design consultant and the lead interaction designer at Software Engineering Professionals here in Indianapolis. He advises on design for enterprise software projects and has at times led groups in design, software engineering, and fine arts. He was formerly the creative director of Lilly's Clinical Innovation Lab, director and curator of the StutzArtSpace Gallery here in Indianapolis, and has been involved with several startups, including being the co-founder and CTO of one. With that being said, I'm going to hand it over to Andy to kick us off and get the workshop going.
Hey, good morning. Let me share my screen. And all right. So why do I care about this topic? It's because, as a design consultant, I get to be involved in a lot of new ideas starting. And then I've also been able to see them through multiple releases over years of time. And especially as my time as a creative director of the Innovation Lab, a lot of that job was shaping the story of a new idea and where it would go. Like, where is it going to start and where is it going to go? So I really love this thought of how storytelling works into software and new products that go and affect the experiences of how people interact with the technology in their lives. And so as Jamie mentioned, a lot of the time we're going to spend together here is going to be in Miro. So this is an online whiteboarding tool. So we're going to start with just a quick exercise to get used to being in there a little bit. Is the link in the chat?
Yes, I completely forgot to mention that. Sorry, everybody. Yes, Miro is the online collaboration tool we're going to use today for the workshop. I've put the link in the Zoom chat for Miro. So take a look at that, take a look in the chat stream and click on the link and take a moment. Let's take a moment for everybody to be able to join in. That was my fail, and I'll own the failure. I'm sorry about that.
It's great. Thanks, Jamie. So once you're in here, it looks like a diagramming tool. A few quick things. If you're on a trackpad, you can just pan around with the trackpad. If you're on a mouse, make sure you push spacebar to pan around. That will move you around the canvas. And look for the start here part. And if you look on the very left, you'll see some different tools. And the one near the middle top is a sticky note. And try to grab one of those sticky notes and stick it in the start here. And if you could just post a thing that you're looking forward to this week. Yeah, you can zoom in and out with a panel on the bottom right. Also by holding Command or Alt and scrolling, you can also zoom.
This is cool.
Yeah, seeing a lot of new skills and networking. I'm certainly looking forward to that as well. So thanks, everybody. Okay, so what are we going to do today? First, I'm going to spend just a little bit of time talking about how software works as a serial medium and the qualities of serial storytelling. Then we're going to spend most all of our time in breakouts. So these will be small groups where we'll work together in these small groups to create a product arc over multiple releases using these serial storytelling techniques. And then we'll wrap it up talking about some design practices that really aid storytelling. Okay, so our first breakout is our chance to get to know your small group. So we're going to send you into multiple rooms where there'll just be a few of you in each room. And when you get to the room, what I want you to do is just say your name, one sentence about the work you do, and then think about an episodic series that you like. So this can be a TV show, a podcast, something written. And we're not going to have much time. It's only going to be 5 minutes for the whole group. So it'll be really brief and quick. In Miro, we'll be able to have a timer. So I'm going to put a 5-minute timer in there. And so, for example, I'm Andy Chen. I'm currently the lead interaction designer at SEP. It's a software design and development firm. And a show I really enjoy is Steven Universe. He's a boy that is half alien and half human with superpowers. So if we look in Miro, what you'll do is once you're in a breakout, look for the worksheet that has the same number as your breakout number in Zoom. And we're going to go to section 1 and do your quick intro and stick a Post-it with your name and your show in it. And so we're going to spend just 5 quick minutes doing that. So let's send folks to their breakouts if you could. All right, well, welcome back, everybody. So how is software a serial medium? Well, when we're designing software, we're already using lots of story elements in our practice, right? We have journey maps, we make profiles of the different types of roles involved in what they're doing. We make problem definitions. What we produce is already released as episodes, right? When you have software, there's regular releases of new experiences. Some companies will release updates every day. Some are less often, maybe once a quarter or once a year. But the idea is that there's something new for the users to experience when these new releases come out. And more these days, as things go to subscription, we want users to be engaged so that they keep using this software and have impact and value. And these are all qualities of a medium that is serial. You want all these, the stories, the episodes, and continued engagement. Okay, so here's an example of Amazon having serial releases. And their story here with Amazon Prime is about easy access, right? So when they first introduced Amazon Prime, it was a way to have free 2-day shipping, right? And then a couple years later, they introduced Prime Video on top of it. So not only you didn't have to wait 2 days, you had something instantly, right? And then the subsequent release after that was this big event called Prime Day, right? So during that time, they also introduced same-day shipping. So they're like iterating and improving on this initial experience. And they added this big community event. So it's not just you alone interacting with this company. It's feeling that you're tied into something that's greater than just you by yourself, right? Another example is how video games are now releasing content over time, right? So Animal Crossing is something I've seen a lot of in my household. It's a game on a Nintendo Switch. And they have regular releases of content that has people sharing, doing similar things at the same time. So, around springtime, they had events where people would be looking for eggs. And around the summer, they had a new release of fireworks. And these would all be on the same day so that people all around the world would be experiencing doing these things together at the same time, having this new experience. And the game itself follows real time and seasons, right? So if you're playing it in the morning, in the game, it's morning time. When you're playing it in the evening, it's evening time. So you feel tied into the real world and other people playing the game as well. Okay, so I'm going to take a little bit of a look at the arc of a single story. And this is probably something that you're well familiar with, right? If you look at this chart, the x-axis is the amount of time that's happening in our story. The y-axis, up and down, is how much emotion or tension is present, right? So you can see at the beginning of the story, the tension is kind of low, and then it rises up, right? And we have some key points here. We've got the turning point where our hero or the protagonist commits to a quest, right? They make a decision that is key in what's happening. And then we have the climax where the people in this story have the most to lose, right? It's the most amount of tension that happens. And you can see this play out with Little Red Riding Hood, where it starts with her at home and hearing that her grandma is sick. And her turning point is making the decision to enter the woods to get to her grandmother, right? And along the way, she meets the wolf, eventually gets eaten, and it climaxes with the huntsman coming in, and you don't know if he'll be able to save them or not. And then you release that tension, right? And even in products, we want our customers to feel a sense of this journey, right? Of that they're making a decision that gives them agency and change in their experience of what of the world that they had before they engaged with this product. And then you do want a sense of tension. It's like, well, is it going to satisfy them or not? And then like this relief or this, of like, yes, it worked. I'm satisfied with what I'm doing. This is, something I'm engaged with. Okay, so that's what you would have in one story or one episode. But what happens when you want to tell a story over multiple episodes, right? Well, when you do that, each episode can have this story arc. But across the multiple episodes, you can have an underlying bigger story that spans across multiple episodes at a time. And this bigger story doesn't have to be at the forefront of every episode, right? It can ebb and flow. So some episodes can be very concentrated on moving this bigger story along. And some of them can veer into like side paths to explore. And because you have several episodes, you can have things that repeat, like characters that you revisit, settings and locations, themes that repeat throughout the series over multiple episodes. And it also gives you the freedom to really experiment and have different styles. For example, in Steven Universe, they had one episode that was, entirely in songs, like a musical. You've seen this in The Simpsons as well. They had one episode about like one character experiencing the loss of her greatest love, right? And it was just really on the perspective of just this one character's development rather than the greater background story. Okay, so we're going to go into another breakout, and of the shows that were brought up in your small breakout group, I'd like to choose one, and we're going to go back into Miro, and you're going to map out on this chart the arc of just one episode that kind of sticks out in mind to you. And don't get stuck too much on like the different qualities of the show. It's just a quick exercise to just get us the feel for like these different points of the story arc. And then just to the right of that, there'll be space for you to put Post-its to identify like across the different seasons of whatever show you picked, what kind of these serial story techniques were used in the show. And if you can like put up some notes of like specific examples of how they use those techniques, or maybe even other techniques that I didn't mention. So this is going to be in Miro, and this is number 2. Will look like this, and we're going to have 15 minutes to do this. So you'll want to spend maybe the first 5 minutes of your time on this chart, mapping out the one episode, and then the rest of the time talking about the qualities of the over the seasons. Okay, so if we can send to the breakout rooms, and I will start the timer. All right, welcome back, everybody. Hope you enjoyed reliving some parts of shows that you've enjoyed. So what we're going to do next is apply some of these storytelling techniques to designing an imaginary product. And this is our product, is we're going to have this company around the idea of a watch party. And that's just where we're starting, right? And the situation is that friendships are really grounded in social interactions and shared experiences. But these types of experiences have been hard to do this year, right? And we're looking for ways to participate in these real-time shared activities, and not just doing the activity together, but also having multiple ways to have connection, right? So that's what we're going to try to address. And when we design this product, what we're going to do is, how would this evolve over multiple releases? And when you think of each release, you want each one to have its own story arc. And then across releases, you want to try to incorporate these serial storytelling techniques. And you may have seen this before. This is a diagram of how an MVP strategy works, right? And so over multiple releases, if you were like building a car, it's not release 1, you start with a wheel, and then release 2, you have the chassis, and release 3, you have the body. It's that each release is standalone, like an episode of a show, right? Each episode is standalone, right? So then you have release 1 might be a skateboard, and release 2 is a scooter, and release 3 is a bicycle, all the way up till release 5 being a car. And it's going to look, when you get to the exercise, is you're going to have a board kind of like this. And here's me charting out an example of what releases with our skateboard to the car might look like, right? So if like our theme was like, instead of gasoline, now we can use water to power vehicles. Like release 1, we might say, we're going to start simple, right? To get to the essence of what this new thing provides. And so it's like as simple as you could be for transportation, but it's going to use our water power, right? So it just takes 1 cup of water, doesn't get you very far. And the engine like overheats, so it needs an hour cool down between rides, but it's still like something fun and simple that you can get out there that has value to people. And then you can see how this changes with each release. So then you have a scooter all the way to the motorcycle to a car. So this is what we're going to do with our watch party. So think when you get in there of like, what is like the most simple thing you could do to start a watch party to get people value, right? And have that be your release 1. And then as you move to next subsequent releases, I mean, you could expand maybe across different media, across different ways that people interact, maybe across even different types of roles interacting, right? Maybe it's not just your friends, maybe it's celebrities joining in, who knows, right? So maybe by the end, it's not even watching things on screen. Like maybe your theme is like something else that is tying it together. So think of this, make sure that each release has its own cohesiveness, that it can stand alone. And another way you could think of this is maybe the way like a design brief would work, right? And that, imagine if you had a project where you like knew ahead of time, like, hey, you're gonna be able to have like 4 design briefs, but there needs to be a theme that ties them all together and builds cohesively as you go. So that's what we're gonna do. We're gonna spend 20 minutes on this to build out our release plan. And afterwards, we're do some sharing. So also think if there's someone in your group that would be up for sharing what you came up with. Okay, so I'm gonna go ahead and start the timer and off we go. All right, welcome back. Looks like you had a lot of good activity going on. If we could have maybe 2 groups share a little bit about what they made, and we're just gonna make it a free-for-all. So if you wanna share, unmute and speak up.
I can share.
Great, thanks.
I'm over in Breakout Group number 5.
Okay.
My name's Addie. I was in a group with Caitlin and Rhonda, who's not here anymore. So the show that we initially studied was Breaking Bad. Do you want me to go through that, or do you want me to go straight to our product?
Yeah, let's talk about your product.
Okay, cool. Oh my gosh, I just moved the whole thing. Okay, it's in the middle. So it's a watch party, right? That's what most of us are doing. And the first step that we thought of, I don't know how plausible this would actually be, but we thought it would be really cool if like somehow everyone got coupons to order food. Maybe there could be some kind of deal on something specific, like pizza from DoorDash or something else from Uber Eats. So that way everyone could virtually have dinner together. And then the next thing would be voting, like on a feature program, like everyone could submit an option, which brings you to the next thing, which is some kind of warm-up activity, which we were thinking could be some sort of like simple video game, like nothing too crazy or intense, but one that would be like kind of break the ice, warm everyone up, uh, everyone would start having fun. But also, if the voting from the last step was a tie, then maybe that could like decide what the movie would be. And then step number 4, watch the actual movie. Anyone can chime in with their thoughts at any time, and perhaps there could even be an intermission of like 5 minutes or something that you could, I don't know, have any kind of discussion. And then at the end, everyone shares their thoughts, rates the movie on a 5-star system, and then they're going to be pushed to subscribe to a monthly subscription. And that's
Great.
what we came up with.
Cool. I like how you have different ways of interacting and like bringing people together even around food to begin with.
Thanks.
Yeah. Okay. Can we get one other group?
Group 4 would be happy to go.
All right.
So we came up with this idea of Zoom flicks. And so thinking about how this builds over time, the first release would have the controls for someone to be able to create a virtual room for their friends to join. And while they're watching some kind of streaming service, whether that's Netflix, Hulu, YouTube, whatever, their friends can live chat over the interface. And so then release 2 would enhance that so that now they can share their webcam and actually see each other and their reactions to the video. Going into release 3, we would integrate with Uber Eats so they could all have some kind of a meal sharing experience and give all the attendees some enhanced controls for pausing, rewinding, so nobody misses out. Going into release 4, we would enable public rooms for like popular shows. So we would need moderators for those rooms and some kind of UI that would allow users to be able to adjust how much they want to participate. So they could view like their entire country or region, drill down into like just the shows in their state, or like the watch rooms, watch rooms in my city, or just their individual room that they've been able to do up to this point. And then release 5 would be the ultimate watch party. So there's some kind of a reward system built in for participating in the public, some Twitter feed for collaboration across the region, and an audience meter or reaction to show how people are reacting to like major plot twists or the show climax.
That's cool. So you started with like an intimate gathering, and then it ends up in like this big pop culture moment.
Right.
Nice. Thanks. Okay. So, what are some good practices for considering a product over multiple releases? And the first one I'd like to talk about is that, you put out something that looks kind of like a product roadmap, right? But because what we want to make is iterative and we want to take advantage of feedback loops and user research, it's what you have in front of you, what your plan is, you want that to be options. You don't want it to be a roadmap, right? And that has implications on how you plan internally and also market and communicate externally. And that you want to remain flexible, because each time you do a release, like even before release, you've got research going on to validate what you're doing. And especially once it's out in the wild, you've got an abundant amount of other data about research that's coming in, about how everything you're doing is landing. Does it actually meet the need? Are there new needs that haven't been revealed yet? And so you want to be able to pivot quickly. And so your plan needs to think of it more as options rather than a concrete roadmap that's laid out in front of you, right? And how can you shift and pivot to really address the impact and the value and the needs that are out there that you're assuming that you're just learning an incredible amount with each release, right? And when you design, you also have to take into account the business needs and the feasibility of the technology coming through. And, you know, we kind of had the luxury today of not accounting for those business and feasibility needs, but those are, you know, just as key as this storytelling design element. And in order to have that work effectively, you have to involve a lot of other groups in your organization to get that all coordinated. So those are some of the good practices that I thought of. In Miro, there's a section in the upper right. So if we could go back there, and let's just take a few minutes and put some post-its of either like nuances on the good practices I mentioned or other ones that you're thinking of. And let's just take about 5 minutes and we'll throw some post-its up. And I'll set the timer. Okay, thanks for some great thoughts there. We have just 3 more minutes before our time together is over. Any quick questions?
Can you give us an example of some software products you think that incorporate storytelling particularly well?
You know, it's not as much like storytelling as the content. It's probably more of the feeling of what someone goes through from one release to another. I guess one example from this week was a lot of video games are moving toward before they have their initial like big launch of the game being like complete, they will release it maybe a year or 2 ahead of time in the mode that's early access. And when the first early access is released, the game is actually playable. And maybe it only has 1 level, or like maybe you could play it all the way through, but it's missing some key interactions or characters. But it's very much the same as you would have in an MVP release. And so that, you know, that initial release attracts the biggest fans, right? And then it starts to spread the word. And then they get to participate, maybe almost Kickstarter style, in as the game gets more and more mature, and they can give feedback into maybe different places that it could go that it otherwise wouldn't. And then by the time the game comes into its big release, it has already a lot of momentum from the fan base that's been growing and getting more engaged until it jumps to the mass market. So that's something that has, I think, the qualities of like pursuing a theme over time, with like each release providing a new experience to look forward to, and then building to something that can like make a jump to something a lot bigger than from where it started. Okay, well, thank you guys so much for being part of this today. It was my pleasure to be here with you, and I always enjoy connecting with folks. So please feel free to hit me up on LinkedIn, and
Awesome.
Have a great week.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you everybody for joining us today. Before we leave, I do want to give another shout out to all of our sponsors for the event today. And share my screen real quick. Man, technology is not my friend today. Anyway, we have a lot of sponsors that we want to thank today and throughout the rest of the week, and helping us put on Mid-Coast Design Week, along with you, the participants and the attendees of the workshops, along with Andy, along with the rest of our staff, along with our lovely Lena that helped provide ASL translations today. And so this has been really great so far. We're excited for the rest of the week. If you're interested in the other events during the week, information on all the events is available at midwestdesignweek.com. If you have any questions at all, feel free to reach out to any of us on Slack. So anyone with the Midwest Design Week MWDW tag of the names are part of the organizational team and can help you with whatever you need. This has been a blast. The Miro board is a public board, so it will be available for at least one more month if you wanted to come back and reference anything that you saw or experienced today. Along with a recording of this session will be available at a later date. We can send those links along as well. With that being said, we hope you all have a lovely rest of your day. Join in some of the other events today and through the rest of the week, and have fun being creative people. Thank you so much.